Welcome to the Family Bible Journey. If you're interested in seeing how the journaling that we mention in the podcast works, check out our website at familybiblejourney.com or look for us on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for listening. This is episode 270, season 1 of the Family Bible Journey Old Testament podcast. Today we're looking at Esther chapter 3. The title of today's podcast is Ancient Foes, Now Mortal Enemies. And our key verses for today are chapter 3, verses 1 to 6, where we read, After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, and advanced him and set his throne above all the officials who were with him. And all the king's servants who were at the king's gate bowed down and paid homage to Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage. Then the king's servants who were at the king's gate said to Mordecai, Why do you transgress the king's command? And when they spoke to him day after day and he would not listen to them, they told Haman, in order to see whether Mordecai's words would stand, for he had told him that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage to him, Haman was filled with fury. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. So as they had made known to him the people of Mordecai, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews, the people of Mordecai, throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. This is the word of the Lord. So this is the beginning of the tremendous conflict of the book of Esther. And this Haman is hatched as an enemy of God's people who is not content simply to do away with the adversary, but rather decides in his murderous hatred that he is instead going to commit genocide and do his best to rid the world of these troublesome people called the Jews. And this is just one more example of how the Jewish people have been among the most persecuted people of all time. The fact that the text mentions that Haman was an Agagite, if you look up that word Agag in the Bible, the first time we see it is actually all the way back at the time of the Exodus in Numbers chapter 24, verse 7, where no one other than Balaam, that's that prophet who was hired by the kings of Moab to curse Israel as they were passing through their land. Balaam says that there is going to be a king of Israel exalted over Agag. And so this Agagite line, it's more than just a person. It's actually a royal line. It is the royal line of the Amalekites. And the Amalekites were people who refused Israel entry into their land during the Exodus. These are among Israel's arch enemies. So this is truly a blood feud. This is a racial, a national conflict. And now that Haman, the Agagite, has ascended to the position of power that he has in Persia and Media, he is going to use every resource he has to finish the deal of ridding the world of the arch enemies of his people. And if you go forward in time to the time of King Saul, that would be approximately 600 years before this story is happening. It was King Agag who Saul was commanded by God to wipe out with his people that Saul decided to spare for whatever reason, taking instead for himself the best of the flocks and the people of the Agagites for himself. And it was for this insolence, it was for this disobedience that Saul ends up being removed from his position as the king of Israel. And so this Haman is likely a member of that royal line, these ancient enemies of God's people, Israel. And so when we have that understanding, that deeper historical context of this conflict that has spanned centuries between these two people, then we begin to see that this is more than just a personal spat. Rather, Mordecai is somebody who represents the entirety of the Jewish people in this story. And Haman represents all of the enemies of God's people as he seeks to exterminate them once and for all. And for those of you who are journaling with us through the Bible, I do have a couple of notes from chapter 3 that I'd like to share with you. On verse 2, when it talks about Mordecai's refusal to bow before Haman, my note there says, "This faithful Jew bowed only to God and king, not impostors or pretenders." I also have a note on verse 5 that says, "Anger, arrow," in other words, anger leads to murder, even genocide. And later in the chapter, on verse 11, we see that the king gave Haman all of the authority to do whatever it was that he wanted with his troublesome people. And so my note on chapter 3, verse 11, where the king gives Haman his royal seal, it says, Haman had full royal authority. And then a words of wisdom. Be careful who you trust. This king trusted a real bad guy, and many would suffer for it. And so in this chapter, we see how it was that this centuries-old feud between these two people has reached a boiling point. And Haman sends an order, a royal edict, even a royal death sentence for all the Jewish people, telling all of the people everywhere that on a certain day, the 13th day of the 12th month, they would be allowed to kill the Jews and plunder their property. So this chapter ends in an incredibly difficult and dark note for God's people. And Mordecai and all the Jews are going to have to do something, anything, to try to keep this royal edict from being fulfilled. Because if it is fulfilled, it means the end of the Jewish people. If you appreciate this podcast as a part of your daily routine and would like to become a monthly sponsor so that others are blessed as you are by the podcast, go to FamilyBibleJourney.com to learn more. Sponsorships are tax deductible and cover our operating expenses like hosting and the services that make this podcast work. Our blessing for today. May you be kept safe from murderous hate, and when powerful enemies threaten, may God Himself defend and preserve you. Amen.